Well, I mean, it's just these are brutally tough decisions. Okay, so they're probably going to go with a combination of 11 receivers and running backs. The question is, do you go 5 running backs and 6 receivers? Do you go 6 running backs and 5 receivers?
Yeah.
Right now, you have McCaffrey and Juice, Mitchell, Guerendo, Patrick Taylor, Jordan Mason, Cody Schrader. That's 7. So if you go with 6 receivers and 5 running backs, tell me which two of those guys are you cutting? It's easy to say Patrick Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay, but even Patrick Taylor has looked pretty damn good in the uniform, to be honest. So that's 1. But who's going? Who's going out of Mason, Schrader, Guerendo, and Mitchell and Juszczyk? Assuming
if someone wants to give you something for Mitchell in a trade, I'm talking like 4th round pick, I think you have to take that. I'm not sure there's a market for a guy like Elijah Mitchell right now. If there was, he'd probably be gone already. I think it'd be Mason. I don't think Kyle Shanahan trusts him as a running back. I think that's somewhat foolhardy. But I would also maintain 6 backs instead of 5. I think
go with 5 receivers.
You can go with 5 receivers. And those 5, Pearsall, Samuel, Ayuk, Jennings,
and
Cowing. And then
so that means you're cutting everybody else. Ronnie Bell cut, Chris Conley cut, Danny Gray cut, Trent Taylor cut, Owens Kid cut, Tay Martin cut. Those guys are all cut.
And I think that you can maybe keep Conley and Trent Taylor as practice squad guys and call them up in certain spots. It's not as if there's a hot market for either of those dudes. And that allows you to maybe use Guerendo as sort of a slot receiver at times if you need it in a pinch. It's a thought.
What about getting rid of, I mean, I know this is going to be, nobody wants to talk about this because everybody loves this guy, but Juszczyk's 33. I'd rather cut Juszczyk and try to give the fullback job to Guerendo than cut Guerendo and his 4.38 speed at 228 pounds or whatever.
They won't cut him. They won't cut him.
They won't cut Juszczyk, but I mean, he makes a lot of money. There's very few teams in the NFL that use the fullback. I know he's taking a pay cut, but you're still talking about a veteran guy. He's also not very coveted because, as I said, there's probably only the Niners, the Steelers, the Baltimore, Cowboys, the Ravens. There's like about 7 teams that use a fullback.
But Kyle Shanahan puts that fullback position. I mean, there's a reason. Juszczyk's a wonderful player, but there's a reason.
What's the most valuable thing that he does?
He's basically the second tight end on this team, which doesn't have a number 2 tight end. And now you're asking Isaac Guerendo to not only be a lead blocker in the run game, which he is often,
but they don't use Juice. How many times do you think in a game on average Juice is used as a lead blocker for McCaffrey? How many times?
7 times a game.
Oh, I think it's less, man. I think it's less. You might be right. I think it's less.
They're in 21 personnel a lot.
Yeah, but they use him the Niners use him as they'll put 5 in the pattern and throw him in the flat. I mean, as far as where he's actually blocking,
I think there's a lot of skill. I think there's a lot of intelligence required to be a fullback in Kyle Shanahan's system. Mm-hmm. And if they want to continue to use the fullback the way Kyle wants it to be used, which clearly he's all in on the concept of having a fullback on the field or an H-back, whatever the hell you want to call it. To have somebody in a Guerendo, like, I don't know what Isaac Guerendo's Mensa score would be. Like, I don't know. I know that Kyle Juszczyk went to Harvard. I don't think that's a prerequisite for playing fullback, but they throw a lot of different responsibilities. I mean, Juszczyk has to know every wide receiver route. He has to know everything coming out of the backfield. He's like the 4th string quarterback. He's the 2nd tight end. He's got to carry
they're clearly thinking about life post Juszczyk. Why? Because I mean, last year they went for Jack Coletto, but he wasn't quite a good enough pro athlete, and they exposed him to waivers halfway through the year, and he wound up in Pittsburgh.
That's right.
This year they draft Guerendo, and to me, they gave him a fullback number. He's wearing 49. To me, he absolutely looks like a fullback. I mean, he might be a really fast fullback, but he doesn't seem like he's not Cody Schrader. He doesn't have that kind of pick and slide. He doesn't have that kind of vision. He's a trap running, situational back who's never really been an every down guy. But I'm just looking at him and going, wait a second. What if let's talk about this realistically. Like what do we actually think is going to happen? Okay, so I'm looking at that depth chart and I'm thinking McCaffrey's going to show up. He's going to look a little less explosive than last year, but still very much on top of his game, like one of the best backs in football that he is. I think Mitchell's going to show up ready to roll because I think his career's on the line. And we know what he is. He doesn't fumble. He's Shanahan's favorite. He doesn't have a lot of negative yardage plays, but he also exposes himself to hits. He runs upright. He takes hits. Then there's Patrick Taylor, who good-looking athlete for sure, and I'm not sure what the plan is there, to be honest. Maybe just quality depth. Jordan Mason, if I was Jordan Mason, his agent, I'd be calling up Lynch going, dude, get me somewhere else. Get me out of here because your guy doesn't believe in me, and I get no run, and I'm big. My guy's big and strong and fast and ready, and he's wasting away on your bench. Right. And then, but I think Mason's going to play well. I think Mason's good. And then there's, Juszczyk, who is going to show up in shape and ready to roll. And then what do you think you're going to get out of Cody Schrader? I think Cody Schrader is absolutely determined with the burning, of 1,000 suns to make this roster. So, yeah. So what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? It's like something's going to have to give. This is going to be a very, very tough decision. And to me, I would much rather cut Juszczyk 1 year too early and force Guerendo to play a position that he's not necessarily ready for than to cut Guerendo or cut Cody Schrader or cut Jordan Mason. That's where I'm coming from.
I draw the line with Mason. I don't feel as if Jordan Mason.
But Jordan Mason's looked great, Dieter, in the games that he's played. He just never plays.
Well, and again, much like you say with a guy like Beal, like that's great that he comes in and he gives you these moments, but Kyle Shanahan sure as shit doesn't seem to trust him. Doesn't trust him.
I wonder if Beal can do it. I believe Mason can do it. I really do. I think Mason.
I wonder if we would run into a rate of diminishing returns with Jordan Mason because he doesn't seem as if he has a lot going on in the bag. I mean, he's an incredibly athletic player, but I didn't catch the feel. I didn't catch the feel of it. And again, I do want to make it clear, like it's so easy. It's kind of some Madden logic to be like, oh, he'll just play fullback. Like, I don't think that it's nearly as easy as people make it out to be. The 49ers had every opportunity to cut Kyle Juszczyk this past offseason. And in fact, it would have been the logical thing to do after both parties are like, Juszczyk took a pay cut.
He was willing to play ball with them.
He's still exceptionally highly paid. So it's not as if they got all the way up, but they found a level that the 49ers are like, okay, this is good. We can work with this because they understood that not having a fullback is pretty dangerous for this team. And I don't know what they do if Juszczyk is gone, but my guess would be that they just run 11 personnel all the time. I don't think you can go Braden Willis at tight end. Now that you don't have a Ross Dwelly, he can't, he was kind of an H-backy type. I mean, I think you'd end up seeing George Kittle in the backfield a lot. I think Kyle Shanahan just puts a premium on that position. And it should be noted, there's a good fullback at Michigan right now. There's a good fullback at Iowa right now. They might be able to draft the replacement for Juszczyk. They might be able to go out and get Giovanni Ricci next year or go out and get Jack Coletto back when he's a restricted free agent. They might get Patrick Picard out of Baltimore. Like there are options available at fullback post Kyle Juszczyk who aren't going to cost as much as Kyle Juszczyk, whether it be draft, free agency, and Andrew back out of Houston, something to that effect. I do think that Kyle Shanahan still deeply values the fullback position, and that he's not going to toss somebody in just because he's an athletic marvel and do it. I think that there's a lot more to it than simply just he was a running back. Now he's a fullback.